Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. I would love to see if the chat is accessible. So if you are here and you are able to type in the chat, please say something. Since I don't see any chatting, I'm wondering if oh, there we have some folks. Hi, Yasmin. How are you? Welcome. All right. Welcome, everyone. I am back for our very last master class together. I don't know if the sound you can tell, or maybe you have never met me before, but I am still a little bit sick. So thank you, Yasmin. I see you asking. Yes, we had to send an email out to cancel the class last week because I fell ill with what I think is I heard someone call it the Algiers flu. I'm based in the capital here in Algiers, and I don't know if it's just something going around, but I got very sick and I had to cancel. So for those of you who waited and showed up tonight, I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Thank you for joining me. And I'm happy to be back, even though I have a bit of a hoarse voice. And I'm still sniffling a little bit, but I'm happy to be back for our last class. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. And for those who are saying that you're new here, don't worry. I'm going to go over everything. And for those who are returning, welcome back. All right. Awesome. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen. We are going to be talking about negotiating job offers and closing the deal. This is another way of saying what to do once you get the offer. This is part of a series. We have been doing a series. It's a 6-class series. It was supposed to also be 3 weeks, but it got stretched because I got sick. We are doing a series on how to apply to jobs in English. So we started at the very beginning, which is how do I write my cover letter? How do I put together an English resume? We moved into how to search for jobs, how to network with folks, how to do an interview. And now we are at the final stage. And in this one, we will be discussing how do I negotiate? Once you are offered a job, once you get through all the steps, you get your resume accepted, you're invited to the interview, you do interview 1, maybe interview 2, you pass any written tests, and for amazing recognition of you and what you've done, congratulations, they offer you a job. However, you want to negotiate either a better salary, better working conditions, maybe remote working conditions, or better benefits. And so we'll be talking about how to go about this. I am Ariella. For those who don't know me, my name is Ariella Knight. I am an English teacher originally, but I am also now a business owner because I moved to Algeria in 2018 and I ended up opening my own English school. So I run the American Institute. We're an English school and a cultural center based here in Algiers. And for those of us who are joining outside of Algiers, we do some online events. We have online classes and we have things like this masterclass, which we're happy to offer for free for those who are outside of the capital and are looking to engage with us. I am American. I don't know if you can tell from the voice, and I'm from Boston. I see familiar faces who've probably heard me introduce myself like 15 times by now, so thank you for your patience. I try to mix it up so that I provide a little bit of new information every time. And for those who I haven't met yet, or it's your first time here, welcome and nice to meet you. So this is the course. Everything you're reading is about the course that actually we're finishing. So this is the last one. This course was a free masterclass. It is online, was and is online right now. We were holding these every Monday and Thursday night in February. And this is our last one. We are recording them. So this class right now is recorded and we're publishing them on YouTube. So you can see in red the link that you can go to find our YouTube. All of the previous classes are there. So if you have missed us, if you have really wanted to see the session, for example, on cover letters, or you really wanted the session on networking, they're recorded and online. And I believe we are live on YouTube now, I think. So hello to anyone watching on YouTube. These classes are open to everybody. So as you can hear, I'm speaking somewhat quickly in English. I am speaking at a regular tone, so it is designed for people who already speak a pretty high level of English, because those people, you guys, with your level of English, are have the ability to apply to jobs in English. So this is a class to develop a skill set, which is applying to jobs for those who've already mastered the language enough to work in it. So I'm not providing an English class, but if you don't understand anything, you can always ask me in the chat. And otherwise, I'm just here to share some knowledge about essentially professional development. So this is the overview of the course. As you can see, a total of 6 sessions: resume, cover letter, networking, interviews, job search, and today is negotiating job offers. And I hope it's interesting to you. Normally we start with a poll. Oh, sorry, I'm ahead of myself. We have a few rules. Stay appropriate, stay on topic, and participate. So I talk to you guys while I read what you write on the chat, and I love that. Please participate. When I ask questions, I rely on you to engage with me. I'm not just talking to myself here. I want to see what you have to say. We have something at the end of this presentation which does invite participation on audio. We tried it last time or 2 classes ago, and unfortunately, it didn't quite work. So I want to try again. In this case, some of you will have an opportunity to attempt to negotiate on audio. We don't allow video, but we would allow audio. So please participate, please engage with me, ask me questions, and let's get started. So here's what we're going to cover today. Of course, the topic of negotiations and closing the deal, or essentially coming to a negotiated agreement with a future employer. This is a big topic. And so the first thing I'm going to tell you guys is that if you are ever in the position of negotiating, to do your research. There's a lot more out there that can help you than an introduction class, but I hope that this class that you're receiving with me will give you the motivation to do the further research. There are statistics out there about the best methods, about the best sort of strategies that you can use, or arguments, that's the word I want. Best methods, best arguments, convincing phrases, as well as some statistics about industries or jobs that are more or less likely to accept negotiated salaries. So I really invite you to explore the topic more after this today. I hear, I'm looking at the chat and I see Khalid, you're saying it's always difficult to negotiate. And then in English, it's even more difficult. I get it. I mean, I know every time I teach this course or every time I speak with, especially young professionals, even when we're talking about our own native language, the concept of negotiation is scary. We can be very uncomfortable talking about money in any context. So already it's an environment where you're talking about money. And then on top of it, we have to speak about ourselves as in very flattering terms. We have to argue that we deserve a higher offer. We deserve more compensation for the proposed job. And this concept is, depending on the culture you're from, is anxiety provoking. It's very challenging to do. It's stressful, it can feel awkward, and it demands a lot of confidence and a lot of courage. So I just have to continue to congratulate those of you who are doing all of these hard things in a language that is not your first. So make sure that when you're in these positions and you're feeling insecure and you're feeling unsure, which is normal when you're going into a negotiation, be sure that you pat yourself on the back and say, hey, I'm doing something that a lot of people will never do. A lot of people will never negotiate, and a lot of people will never negotiate in a language that's not their native language. So you're taking on a challenge, you're pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, and you should feel, know that I am proud of you, even if I don't know you, that is something to be proud of. All right, there's my pep talk. Today, we're going to be talking about the advantages of negotiations, because before we go into how to negotiate, I want to convince you why you should negotiate. Then we will go into the how. So those are the steps to prepare for a successful negotiation. And then if we have time at the end, we'll be going till 8:30. I'd love to give you the opportunity to do a trial negotiation here with the group. So I've prepared a scenario, and if it works, I'll allow you to participate on audio to give me a few sentences about why this character, this sort of fake persona I created, why that person should get a higher offer to join the company. Let's get started. All right, so first, instead of polls, usually we start with polls, but I figured this topic is a little bit more, I want to say niche, meaning it's a little bit rare to find people who have negotiated, especially negotiated in English. So instead, I want you to guess. Tell me in the chat, what do you think is the percentage of people who negotiate? This means they receive an offer. So they receive an offer to work, let's say, as an electrician at a construction company. They build lots of developments. They have electricians. So if you receive a job offer and they say, we want to pay you X amount, how many times does that person ask for more salary before they accept the job? They say, thank you for your offer. I'd love to join the company, but I want 5% more. I won't join until I get 10% more. Okay, send me anything. Is it 1%? Is it 99%? What percentage of people negotiate? I see 20%, 100, 25, 10, 70, 10. Send me your best guess, you guys. Most people have no idea what the answer to this is. 50, 50. Bakush, I see you asking for another definition of negotiation. So what we're talking about here is people who, before they accept a job, they ask for higher salary. That's called negotiating a job offer. What percentage of people ask for a higher salary before they accept the job? Hello, everyone. Hi, Aladdin. Welcome. I see 30%, 50, 50, 90. Walid says 20% in our country. So it's very interesting to think about culturally, in which countries are people more comfortable or less comfortable negotiating. 80, 20, 20. Great. All right, let me show you what I found with a caveat meaning keep in mind when I show you this number that these statistics are not taken from Algeria. These are taken from Europe and America, because this is where these companies that do polling are based. So keep in mind, I'm really happy Walid said in our country, 20%, because it's really important to factor in the cultural element here. All right, the answer is 58%. Again, this is with a bias towards North America and Europe. 58% of folks negotiate when they get a job offer. Some of you were above. I think a majority of you were below, thinking that almost nobody is negotiating. Well, for me, I actually was shocked to see how low this number is. I was under the impression, and I think this shows my American upbringing, that I was trained when I was a young professional, a student, and I was about to enter the workforce. I was trained to believe that everyone negotiated, that in fact, it's almost a requirement or an expectation. The expectation is that you will negotiate. Everyone negotiates. This is why I thought it would be 80%, 90%. I was shocked to see that it was as low as 58. Now, my next question for you, and we can keep analyzing these numbers. Again, these numbers do not include Algeria. So I really am curious if we at one point managed to do a big polling of the Algerian market, whether we would see 58%, or it sounds like most of you think in Algeria it would be lower. Okay, when people negotiate, when they commit to negotiating, they decide like, okay, I'm going to ask for more money, and they do it. So they're in the meeting, they make their pitch. Hey, I think I should get more money because I have experience, I'm dedicated, I bring special skills. What percentage are successful? So this is a new question. What percentage of people who negotiate are successful? So if I negotiate for a 5% raise and then the company agrees, that's a successful negotiation. So Kareem says 90%. So 90% of people who negotiate are successful. Khaled says 10. Okay, so we have a big range. Is it the majority of people who negotiate are successful, or is it the minority? Waleed says less than 58. Zach says 30. Najat 75. Hajira 50, 40, 80, 40, 60, 30. Nada says 15%. They don't all get what they want. But 15% meaning most of them don't get what they want, right? 70%, 50%. All right, I'm going to show you 85% are successful. 85%. This means when someone chooses to ask for higher salary, they are very likely to get it. 85% is very likely, not somewhat likely or even just likely. They are very, very likely, meaning you are very likely to get it. My regular note applies here about country-specific data. This number is also from North America and Europe, and how countries think about and respond to money, conversations around money and value and worth do affect things like negotiations. It's not just countries. In fact, when I was finding these statistics, you can also find that men typically have more successful negotiations than women. That women who negotiate are more likely to have a negative perception, a perception of greediness or being full of herself, self-centered. A woman who negotiates is still likely to be successful, but it might not be 85%, maybe it's 75%. It's just slightly more likely than men to have a negative perception. So I bring this up as an example to show you that these numbers don't tell the whole story, and you still need to evaluate every situation to determine what the expectations are of that situation. Okay. I love what Najat says about these numbers. It's always about daring. I think regardless of if you say, listen, my industry doesn't negotiate or my country is not as open to negotiation, even if you drop this number by 20%, you're still more than 50%. You're still more likely to get what you want when you ask for it. I don't think changing country could drop this number below 50%. And I can even tell you myself, I employ people. I make job offers. And the ones who ask for more money are the ones who are considered. They don't always get it, but if you don't ask, you're definitely not getting it. So I hope that this motivates you. Going into this, I wanted to excite you about why you should care about negotiations. It's really worth your time to figure out a way to negotiate when you're entering the market. So what is the main takeaway? Why am I telling you this? Because more people should negotiate. That is what I believe, and that is what I'm here to say. I'm going to be giving you a training tonight about how to negotiate, the values of negotiating, but I'm a firm believer that you need to have every tool available to you for a successful career, and making the appropriate amount of money is connected with your ability to have a long-term successful career, to be taken seriously in the workplace, and to make sure that you're setting yourself up for the future. So the advantages of negotiation, we're going to talk about 4 of them. There are more, but I decided to settle on what I see as the top 4 advantages of why you should negotiate when you're offered a job. They are fair compensation, recognition of value, career advancement, and a positive relationship with employer, which I put there because I think most of us assume that a negotiation might lead to a negative relationship or a negative outcome. So the first is fair compensation. As we just looked at, statistically, those who negotiate receive a higher salary. You are more likely to get a higher salary when you negotiate. So that simple fact should be a motivator, making you or encouraging you to negotiate. This is, okay, I definitely thought I wrote something else for this slide before we go to recognition of value. So I guess what I was going to say, and I don't see it here, is about the word fair. So fair compensation also means that you feel like the compensation you're receiving adequately rewards you for your work. So it creates an environment in which you feel like what you are getting paid is equal to the amount of effort you're giving, to the amount of responsibility that you have, to the amount of importance of your role in the company. So that question of fairness is at the root of this. Negotiations should not be something that we consider as greedy. It is not about greed. Oh, they just want more money. Oh, they're just full of themselves. They think they need more. It's not about want. It's not about need. A negotiation is about fairness. I believe that I am worth more money because I have a higher education, I have a certificate, I bring language skills. I also believe that the responsibility I have in the company merits a higher pay. If there's anything that you take away from tonight's webinar, it's this. Negotiations should not be grounded in need. A negotiation is not necessarily saying, I need more money because my mom is sick, because the commute is far, because I guess, I don't know, I have expenses. I just have a lot of expenses in the house. I have 3 children. My wife is pregnant, or I am pregnant if I am the wife, etc. This is something that I commonly hear in negotiations, is that people think, if I can convince the person I'm speaking with that I need more money, then they will feel compelled, they'll feel required or guilty if they don't offer it to me. But in fact, I would technically, I mean, maybe it's harsh what I'm about to say, but I would technically call that a manipulation tactic, not a negotiation tactic. Because a negotiation tactic is not trying to affect your emotions. I'm not trying to make you feel bad for me. I'm not trying to get a raise out of guilt or out of shame or out of empathy. Well, empathy is important in negotiation, but I'm not trying to make you feel like I need more money. I'm trying to convince you that I am worth more money in a very non-emotional sense. Like in the job description, you only ask for a bachelor's. I bring a master's. That should be worth a higher compensation. Or at a similar company nearby, they're offering a higher salary for the same role. So I believe what you're asking me to do here is worth the salary they're offering next door. I want to be someone who you see as valuable at that level. Okay, so you're making intellectual and logic-based arguments about why you should be offered more pay. This was a long way to come back to the word fair, but I really want you to pay attention to that. It's about fairness based on who I am and my credentials, based on the responsibilities of the job, and based on the marketplace. This is why I think I deserve more money, okay? One of the things I really, really discourage is bringing up anything around need, because a guilt-based raise is a different type of raise. It leaves a different taste in the mouth of the employer. All right? It's almost like it's almost like you're in the street and there's someone who's coming to you for money. You feel bad, you give them money. So when you walk away, you're feeling bad for that person. Oh, they have a hard life. Oh, that must be so hard. I don't want to hire that person to run my accounting because they clearly have something really hard in their life that's taking their focus. So while this example is very extreme, I want you to think about this. You don't want to be approaching an employer as someone who's distracted, in bad condition, worried, and sort of looking down at them as like, oh, poor thing, miskeen. You want to be treated as an equal with your employer. So come at them from a position of strength where you are arguing about your worth rather than a position of need. All right. Finally, I will allow us to move to the next point. Recognizing value. So in order to negotiate from a place of strength where you are arguing for yourself, not, my father is sick, times are hard, I'm buying a house. No, we're talking about I deserve more money because of who I am and what I bring. So that means when you're negotiating, you're demonstrating that you know you are valuable. You are telling your employer, I see myself as someone who will be of great value to your company. And I am able to see that as well. It shows two things. Number one is that you have done your research. So in order to say, I think I should make a higher amount of money, it suggests that you know that what they're offering you is not adequate. Maybe it means you've talked to friends who work in the same industry. Maybe it means you've been offered jobs at other companies in the area, but you're coming with a sense of, I've done my research and I think what you're offering is not appropriate. And also that you know the market, that you're familiar with other employers. This does two things. I mean, it provides the sense that you do your research, meaning you're an organized person, you think ahead of time, you prepare, but it also introduces into the mind of the employer that they don't have you yet, that they are in a hiring dynamic. The employer has all the power during the interview stage. Right? You're asking them for a job, you're submitting documents, you come in when they ask, you complete any sort of writing test they have, language test they have, and the employer gets to sit, and wait. They ask for more, another interview, another. The minute the employer offers you a job, it is you who has the power because the employer is telling you they want you. They're showing their hand. All right, I know I asked you for 6 interviews, but you're the top candidate and we really want you. So this is your moment. So when you mention that other companies are paying more, it's a way of putting into the mind of the employer that you are a valuable asset who might be recruited elsewhere. So it's very smart to make references to other companies, competitor companies in the same industry and what they pay, even if you don't know for sure, but you think. It's a little bit of a psychological trick. You're saying to them, I know that you want to hire me, and I know what your main competition next door, they actually pay 10,000 dinar more per month. You're not threatening. There's no direct, like, if you don't pay me, I will leave. But you are psychologically introducing the idea that I have an option. You want me, and I am making a decision. Let me just sit and make my choice. All right? Enjoy the power that you have being someone who is wanted. The last thing about why you should, or about the value of knowing your worth, recognizing your own value, is it shows some really nice characteristics to the employer, the kind of characteristics that they actually want from their staff. It shows that you're serious. People who are not serious don't enter into negotiations. Why? Because negotiations are uncomfortable. If you're not serious, you will not enter into an uncomfortable situation. You go for what is easy. You go for what is obvious and what takes the least amount of time. So by entering into a negotiation, you're showing I'm a very serious kind of person. It also shows you're committed. Usually you don't start negotiating for a job you don't want. Again, because it's uncomfortable. So if I didn't want this job, if I know I don't want it, I'm not going to waste everyone's time talking about salary. So you only truly, it's logical, you only negotiate jobs that you're intending to accept. It doesn't mean the negotiation will be successful and that you will take that job, but it does show that you are committed to it. And that is great. The last thing that it shows is that you're confident. And I mean this in a broad sense, because I'm sure you can tell me like, no, I actually am totally not confident, but I still want to negotiate. You can fake confidence. Fake it until you make it. You don't need to feel amazing about yourself to negotiate. And it's sometimes gaining confidence happens in the reverse. Instead of needing confidence to negotiate, you can just force yourself into the negotiation, practice in the mirror, practice with friends, convince yourself to do it. You will find that it will bring you confidence because it is doing something, it is you doing something that challenges you and pushes you outside of the comfort zone. These are the kind of things that really start to build your confidence. Another great reason why you should negotiate regardless of the outcome. So yes, these are the three things I put down, but you could even add to this list. Ultimately, someone who negotiates presents qualities that an employer will want from you once you're an employee with them. So it's almost another way of convincing. Next, we have career advancement. And now I wanted to ask you guys some questions because I predicted that, which is true, that at this point I would just be talking and talking and talking. So let's get some discussion going. Why do you feel like negotiation is related to career advancement in the broader sense, your overall career? Why do you feel like these things are related? Any ideas? I'm going to read the chat. Meanwhile, let's see what I forgot or not forgot. Let's see what I missed. Nada says, when you know your worth, you should negotiate. True. But back to what I was saying, even if you don't know your worth, even if you don't feel super confident, you should still negotiate and you have a very good chance of being successful. Some of you might recognize the noise in the background. Give me 1 second, you guys, to kick out the puppy in the room and send me answers. How is negotiating related to career advancement? If she won't quiet down, I'm just going to have to kick her out. I'll be right back. I see that you guys remember Moose. This is my brown Labrador puppy, and she likes to crash every single, I don't think we had a single class that she did not crash. And I really prepare her somewhere totally separate, but she finds me. She finds me. All right, let's see some answers. Khaled says experience. Cool. Sarah says negotiation makes you seem more professional and self-worthy. Najat says it shows we're growing. Salary has to grow as well. Good, Najat. This is the direction I'll be going in. It's Moose. Yeah, it was Moose. Okay, I see some of you are not quite sure what is the question. What exactly does this mean? Advancement, career advancement is about your long-term career growth. How does negotiation connect with career growth? So that means, you know, you start as an intern and then you are an assistant, then you become an associate or a manager or then a director. So that path from the very beginning of your career up to CEO or head of department or senior level, that's called career advancement. It's the path that you take over the years, but you should start thinking about it at the beginning of your career. How is what I'm doing now going to help me get where I want to go, wherever that is? Fatima Zora says negotiation would make you more professional and confident about the job you're applying to. Yes, true. Negotiation confirms you have good abilities, skills, and self-confidence, career goals, high potential. Cool. You guys are all on target. I put down two things: how negotiation is connected to career advancement. Honestly, they're both about money. So this whole conversation tonight is about money, about how to make sure you are getting compensated fairly for your work. Why we should negotiate is because the salary we make in our current job actually affects how much you make in future jobs. A lot of companies nowadays will ask you how much you made in your previous job, and they will use that amount so that they can give you an offer. They can estimate how much they need to offer to attract you. Now, I'm sure there are, plenty of places that have no way of verifying. Like, you could say anything, you could lie, they would never know. I also know for a fact there's quite a lot of places, especially in Algeria, who will ask for a pay slip or a fiche de paie. So they actually want to validate exactly how much you are making per month. This means that if you don't negotiate and you accept a salary that you think is not fair, it's too low, you take a salary that is not appropriate, and you say, in the next job, I'll negotiate. In the next job, I'll get a better salary. The next job is I should say could, it's not a necessity. The next job could, in fact, ask to see your current salary, and they will continue to offer you low amounts. And your ability to negotiate is harder because they know that you accepted much lower before. Okay, so negotiating actually really affects your entire career because the salary you accept can kind of benchmark what you think you're worth and therefore what the companies think you're worth. So I said the salary you make now affects the salary you make in future jobs. And this salary can become a baseline for future negotiations, meaning once they know how much you made, they will never go over, let's say, a 10% growth, right? The company is trying to save money on you. So they know, oh, she worked for this, so we'll only offer her 10% higher. Meanwhile, if they saw that you worked for this, then maybe they'd even offer you higher on that, right? Like the companies that are hiring you, you want to present the most competitive profile you can, which includes negotiating at the job beforehand. If you're listening to me and you're like, but Ariella, I didn't negotiate, what do I do? I don't want this to be depressing. I'm not saying that you'll never be able to move your career and your salary up. It's just that your negotiation will be harder if you really want to see a big leap in salary. You'll need to justify it. So that means justify with a new educational program, a new degree, a new certificate, something to justify why you should be getting almost the double of your past job. All right. Let's see what's happening in the chat. Does that make sense? Practice negotiation, improve your negotiation skills. Yes, also, this is a great point Ines is making, because if you have a successful negotiation, you are also improving your communication skills. And these are skills that will help you get future jobs. That's true for all the skills that I mentioned. Self-confidence, preparation and research, being serious, showing commitment. And of course, negotiation is nothing if not an exercise in communication. You will certainly improve your communication skills and learn a lot about effective communication when you embark on a negotiation. Najet says that you personally experienced this in your first job. So I'm happy this is relevant for you. Mohammed Walid, I do not advise that you prepare a fake fiche de paie, a fake pay slip. These are verifiable. If the employer wants to go to CNAS themselves, they can also request this information. So I don't recommend faking your documents. I recommend instead creating a very strong argument for why your salary from job 1 to job 2 should have a big difference. That is the path I recommend, not fraud. Sarah has a great question. So if we're applying to our first job ever, should we still negotiate? Yes, Sarah, I believe so. I think you should still negotiate, even if it's your first job, based on your education. I mean, I personally feel like you should negotiate basically always, but maybe this is a good opportunity with this question where we talk about what you can negotiate. Of course, in the examples I give and what we're all thinking is about salary, monthly pay. How much are we taking home with us? What are we worth? What do we need to make this a proposal we're interested in? All about that monthly pay figure. But you can negotiate many things. Number one, you can negotiate benefits. So if you are really interested in a job, but let's say it's far from your house, you can say, hey, I'd like to negotiate to have 2 days a week where I work remotely because the commute is really long for me. Again, I don't like to have the negotiation end there with the sort of, feel bad for me, relate to me. I would like you to say, I am a very responsible person. I've worked remotely in these other opportunities, or I'm known for my communication skills. I believe that I could keep track of my workload easily. I'm ready to check in 3 months. If it's not working for you, we go back to full time, right? I want you to actually make logic-based arguments based on, I guess I'm using based twice, grounded in, we'll say that, logic-based arguments grounded in your own worth. That's what I want coming up in every conversation, not just sort of the facts of my commute is long, gas is expensive, traffic is bad. Let's go beyond that. Everybody is using that. Everybody's talking about bad traffic. Tell me why you should be trusted with an extra benefit. So that's one kind of benefit. Can you tell me in the chat, what are some other things you can negotiate on? Other benefits, other items? Sarah asks, can we negotiate about insurance? Yes, absolutely. You can definitely negotiate about insurance. I mean, legally, every company should be hiring you with a contract that has insurance in Algeria. But there are also private insurance. So I know a lot of companies have the public CANAS insurance, and then they offer an additional insurance to cover private clinics and private hospitals. So yes, ask for it. Negotiate on these things. Transportation, says Mohammed Walid. Yes, negotiate on transportation. That could include asking for a transportation stipend, so bus fee or private taxi fee. That can include getting paid back for gas mileage. I'm trying to think other things about transportation. Asking for a car or a driver to come pick you up. I know that this is not unheard of. Najat, hour flexibility. Very good. I was hoping someone would talk about this one, which is you can negotiate your working hours. You can say, hey, this pay is okay. I'm happy to accept this pay, but I'd like it to be tied to a more flexible schedule. So every morning I'm going to be available. I'm going to be working 9 to 12. After 12, I want the possibility to complete my remaining hours of work, maybe in the evenings, maybe in the afternoons, maybe I do some time on the weekend. You can explain why. You can say, I have kids I have to go pick up in the afternoons. It's complicated. I have other errands I need to do. The connection always drops in my neighborhood. Okay, you can use your explanations. As long as you still negotiate. Why should you be trusted with this? Why should you deserve this when your colleagues in the company don't get that benefit? What about you means that you should get an extra benefit? Cool. I see here Badradine is saying time. maybe you mean time, like start time. I don't want to start at 9. Can I start at 10? Can I start at 11? Yes, you can negotiate on this. Hadam says labor conditions. Yeah, labor conditions can mean things like your workplace environment, if you want your own office, if you want your own desk, if you I'm trying to think labor conditions. What else? When I think conditions, I think the physical environment. I think maybe special conditions, especially if you have reduced mobility or other kind of handicaps where you need an assisted support, then that definitely needs to be negotiated before you work somewhere. Hey, I need a wheelchair ramp to get to the building. That's the biggest example, but you can have other examples too of things that are like, I'm dyslexic. I take a really long time to read things. I want to make sure that I have extra preparation time before meetings. It's kind of like asking for accommodations for yourself, and this can be negotiated before you accept a job. Definitely. Hadil is saying uniform. Yeah, definitely for engineers, but also for other fields. You're probably not going to be the only, if everyone has to wear a uniform, it's not likely that you're going to negotiate out of it, right? You also have to be realistic. Like, I can't change the rules of the company, but you could say to them, like, listen, I see that you need uniforms for customer visits. I'm really not comfortable in the uniform in the office. I would just want to make sure that I don't have to wear it unless I'm with a customer. And you can trust me with this because I did this with a previous job. I've never slipped up. I never forget it. I'm always responsible and aware, self-aware. So sure, you can negotiate on anything. Or maybe Aya, you meant, or Hadil, you meant negotiate by, having them pay for the uniform. Hey, you guys are hiring me, but you're asking me to pay 3,000 dinar for these uniforms. I'd like you to cover that fee in order for me to accept the job. Cool. Hajira, good. Duties. Again, another one I was hoping that you would bring up. So when we talk about fair compensation, we're saying, does the salary match the responsibilities of the job, as well as your credentials, meaning your degree, your certificates, your skills? But we're also evaluating the duties of the job. Is the pay fair for what I'm supposed to do? So if you find yourself, maybe back to Sarah's question, if you find yourself really negotiating for your first job and you don't feel comfortable asking for more money because you don't have any career yet, you haven't had anyone pay you yet, and you're just not comfortable, one of the things that you can do, a choice that you have, and this is for anyone in their career at any level, is you can say, listen, the pay offered to me does not reflect the responsibilities. I'm okay to take this pay. This amount is okay, but I think we need to reduce some responsibility. Asking me to run something entirely on my own without supervision at entry-level pay, to me, this is not aligned. But if there's someone I can report to, someone who is the one who does the final submission, that could work for me. Or maybe the job is asking you to do a set of 4 different duties. Let's say you work at a front desk, you're receptionist. So you're answering the phone, you're greeting people who come for deliveries, you're greeting clients, you're also managing administrative files, you're making sales, you're doing outgoing calls, you're managing the calendar of everyone who works in your office. You can say to them, I don't think the pay is adequate for this many duties. So I'd like to recommend that we remove the part about managing everyone's calendar. If that were off the plate, then I could accept the pay. All right. So it also really, really encourages you to be steering the ship. This is the steering wheel. I don't know, maybe a ship is wider like this. A car, driving the car. You can ask for what you want. You can sort through their job description, choose the things you don't like, and see if it's possible to negotiate them out. Don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that you're entirely in charge and that you can remove 4 items of the responsibilities. That's not true. You cannot remove the core items, but it doesn't necessarily hurt to ask. If you bring it up respectfully, if you are understanding, which we'll get to in a little bit, and I think I have to move my slides forward. I love negotiations. I'm just ready to talk about this. That there is a respectful way to suggest things that would make it more, your working conditions more appropriate. Let's see what else you guys put, what people can negotiate. Accommodations and travel, says Abdullah, certainly, especially for seasonal jobs or jobs that, let's say you're working on an oil rig in Hassi Masood. It's normal that you negotiate that they're covering your flights, they're covering accommodation when you're down there for 2 months, 2 weeks of every month. Perfect. Najat says company car, definitely. If they're asking you to do things that require a car, you can ask, well, do you have a car? Will you be providing the car? Certainly. Flexible work hours. Kareem is saying you can ask for a percentage of the sales of the month. So this is talking about commission. If you're trying to be a salesperson, you should definitely negotiate your commission. That is a must, right? The company's telling you, yeah, you can take 2% of every sale. If you're a good salesperson and you're going to bring a lot of money to the company, then you come back to them, you say, no, I want 5% of every sale. And here's why. Here's my list of reasons why you should offer me this money and why you want me on your team. Fariel says flexible work hours, work times, holidays. Yeah. Sometimes we can negotiate for stress effect. Yeah. So nowadays businesses are really open to negotiating benefits like mental health days, so extra days off, or gym memberships, or I don't know, yoga memberships. I haven't seen so much of this in Algeria, but I'm sure it's on its way. I'm sure it's starting. Training opportunities, lunch break, extra time, weekends off, a career development plan, an external professional coach or a mentor. All right, very cool. We can negotiate holidays off. Awesome. Oh, I see Hadil is describing the uniform one. Once I said to the human resources, I don't feel comfortable wearing coveralls. I like to wear a jacket and a blazer. He didn't say anything. He just said noted. So I just want to make sure that when you are negotiating, it is after they have offered you the job. This is extremely important. You need to have a job offer. They've already emailed you. They've already invited you to join the company. We do not negotiate earlier in the process because this has the potential to look very negative. Okay? Someone who's still interviewing, let's say there's 5 people interviewing for the job. When it's your turn, at the end of the interview, you start asking for conditions. Does it come with a car? Can I have some remote work? And can I ask for a higher end of the salary? Okay, and maybe they answer you, maybe they don't. But what they will remember is that you came across cocky, meaning, oh, I'm so sure I'm going to get the job. I'm already negotiating, because it's not the time to negotiate. The person facing you is not prepared to negotiate. The negotiation happens after the job has been offered, because otherwise it's a pointless discussion about hypothetical. Okay, hypothetically, if I get the job, would it come with a car? I mean, in this moment, it shows that you either believe you're getting the job, definitely, or you're already demonstrating why you might not take it. So you're like, oh, there's no car. They're watching you consider. They don't want to watch you consider in this phase. In this phase, your job is to appear extremely excited. There should be no negativity expressed about the company you're applying to. So in this moment, it's not the time to ask about working conditions, to ask about uniform, to ask about benefits. That happens after they offer you a job. Once they offer you a job, then you get to say, let me think. Let me learn more. Let me know. Now it's the company's turn to impress you. So now I know that you want me. And then, of course, you can imagine or pretend like, well, I have 3 companies that want me. So I need to know, do you offer remote work? Do you have a car, available for me? That's the time to bring the negotiating power. But if you bring it too early, it looks like you're overconfident and it introduces negativity. Trust me on this one. Do not negotiate until they've asked you to work for them, at which point you'll be talking to them from a position of power. Awesome. Okay, we're going to move forward here. So the last thing of reasons why you should negotiate is, I thought maybe a surprising one to include, which is a positive relationship with your employer. Tell me in the chat, how could negotiating, so like you negotiate and then you join the company. So the person you negotiated with is now your boss. How could this lead to a positive relationship? How can negotiation lead to a positive relationship? Najat, I see your question. I'm going to come back to it. And Salim as well, that's a really good point. So both of these, Najat is about salary expectations and Salim is about public versus private sector. But I want to see if anyone has anything to say about positive relationship with employers. How can negotiating lead to a positive relationship? Ines says it must be done in a smart and polite way. So basically, if a negotiation is successful to the point that you get hired, it means that you already have a nice dynamic. There was politeness involved, and that can carry over into the relationship. Great. Hanan says something similar, that negotiation obliges or requires nice communication. And so you have that foundation of nice communication that you take into the workplace. All right, I'm going to show you what I put. I think I have 3 things. Nada says you have to break the ice and have the audacity to negotiate. You do have to have the audacity, and yeah, the ice will be broken because you're speaking openly about things like money. So here is how I think positive relationships can result from negotiations. The first part of my argument is that we must recognize that negotiating salaries is hard. I know it, you know it, everyone applying for jobs knows it, and everyone hiring people knows it. We know that this is a challenging conversation, an uncomfortable conversation. It can be, I think in Algeria, a culturally very uncomfortable conversation to have. So when you do engage in a negotiation, it shows that you aren't afraid to talk about hard things. You don't avoid difficult topics. You don't hide when things get challenging. This will show the employer that if you have a challenge in the workplace, if you have, let's say, a colleague who's behaving unethically, who's doing something immoral, that maybe you're the kind of person who would say something, right? Because you're not afraid to be uncomfortable. Maybe the boss is doing something wrong. The boss has messed up their calculation and they're about to send it out to a client. They will want people around them who can approach them and say, hey, I think you should check that number one more time. I mean, I know I sound idealistic, and many of you will say to me, Ariella, bosses don't want to be corrected. They just want to be surrounded by yes people. But I invite you to imagine a world where there are many bosses who admire having staff around them who are not scared and don't just do what they're told and never look up and never challenge, never bring new ideas, never advance their own opinions. For those people, negotiation is a pretty good sign. So it shows you aren't afraid to talk about hard things. And it also shows that you take your career seriously. So for me, I want to hire people who are interested in their careers, because if they are interested in their careers, it means they want a good recommendation from me. They want to work hard, get my recommendation to help them with their next job. So they have a self-interest in performing well. It's not that they're just going to come every day, sit on their phone, talk, hang out. It's someone who is engaged in themselves as a professional. And so I can expect them to bring that engagement and that motivation into the workplace. And it will, in essence, really what I'm saying for this whole step, positive relationships with employers, is that it will create respect. It has the potential to create respect from the employer for their new employee. Let me see if you guys agree. Let's see. You negotiate with the value you'll bring to the company and the return you will get. Absolutely. Innovation in the work of the company. It's obligation of the person. Hanan, I'm not fully understanding this one. You need to have all your reasons and really good arguments to get those negotiation proposals and show the value you can bring to the company. You absolutely do. And that's what we're coming to next. This is why we should negotiate. And next, we're going to talk about how to negotiate. Khaled, refusing a salary offer meant refusing a job offer. How do I negotiate with no risk? There is absolutely no way to negotiate with no risk. Anything you are doing in a professional environment comes with risk. However, I would challenge you to change the word from refuse. We're going to talk about this in 1 second. But when you are negotiating, you are not refusing the salary. You are exploring if the salary can grow. So you don't come to them and say, I'm never working for this amount, raise it or I leave. Number one, nobody wants to work with someone who behaves like that. It sounds childish to threaten someone. It sounds unprofessional. So even if there's room for the salary to grow, just the fact that you have approached them that way means they might say, okay, there's no room, bye-bye. All right. Also, there are some companies that don't have the possibility to increase the salary. They can say to you, listen, it's not in the budget. And this actually goes to Salim's question or point about public agencies. There are companies that simply don't have the budget. They cannot change the salary. Or there are companies now, more than ever, public agencies, so government agencies, as well as international, multinational firms. They create things called salary scales. I've also heard salary levels. Essentially, it means that they are not allowed to offer one person a higher salary. Everyone who takes this job has to have the same salary. It makes it a non-negotiable. Okay, that's why we did the exercise a second ago about what is negotiable. Because in these scales of salary, even in a public agency, not all of the benefits are included. Okay, maybe there's no company car. Maybe there's no private insurance. Maybe you're not getting extra days off. But remote work, you might be able to negotiate for remote work. You can negotiate for an early review. So let's say that they typically review their salaries for raise 1 year after they start. Maybe you negotiate, say, I'm willing to accept this job because I know that I will do amazing, but I want a review early and the chance to have a higher job title with the higher salary just after 6 months. Only if I pass the review, only if you see I'm worth it. So when you're negotiating, you need to get creative. If you come into the negotiation saying, if I don't get that number, I'm leaving, it's not as likely that you will be successful. However, that also could be true for you. I can't accept a job that pays this amount. It's too little. It doesn't help me. That could be true. And it could also mean the negotiation won't work. But I will repeat, all negotiations come with risk. There is a potential that the person you're negotiating with perceives it badly. They can say, wow, I don't appreciate this person. They are being aggressive. I don't want to work with them anymore. I rescind my offer. They appear self-centered, obsessed with themselves. They're asking for something way too big. They don't seem to know the company. They think that I can pay them double. This is way too much to ask. So absolutely, because when you negotiate with someone, you're showing them more about yourself. It's more than the CV. It's more than the interview. You're giving them something else to evaluate. There's always a risk in that. if what they evaluate is negative, it may result in the job being pulled from the table. This is the reason that more people don't negotiate, because they are scared. That's why I started the presentation by showing you those statistics to encourage you that, in fact, the fear of a negative outcome is too big compared to the reality, because in the reality, 85% of negotiations end up with a success for the one negotiating. It's not 99.999, but 85 is still pretty good odds. All right. Let's move. Actually, I think Najat also had something interesting in the chat. Let me find this. So Salim talked about public agencies. Oh, Khaled, I see you were trying to get my attention here. I'm sorry, I missed it. Salary and job offer. So Najat, you're saying, what if they ask about our salary expectations? Very good question. So a second ago, I was mentioning that you should not negotiate when you're in the middle of the interview process, because it's not the time yet. However, and this is why it's a great question, it's often that they will ask for your salary expectations. This is, for me, not negotiation, because you are not committing to a salary. You are simply giving a number. And the number that you give should be based, ironically, on my slide, which is research, research, research. It should be based on what you know about the position and what you think is their likely budget. All right. I always tell people, do the best you can to not give a number, but companies, from their perspective, from their self-interest, they want one. So give them the best estimate you have. When they offer you the job, you can negotiate. That's the time to say, I know I said I would accept this job for this amount. However, upon further reflection, I believe it's necessary to review the number because of this reason, and this reason, okay? So giving a salary estimate or a salary preference in the interview stage does not mean you can't negotiate it later. I will say it does limit you. Because if you ask for, let's say, 40,000 dinar a month in the interview stage, and then when they offer you the position, you say, no, actually, I need 100,000 a month to take it, it looks bad. It looks like you completely lied to them in order to get the job offer. So the number, this is why it's not a fun game to play, but the number you give them in the first interview must be in the same realm as what you negotiate for. You are essentially starting your negotiation or picking that starting number when you give a salary. I see Hadam, I'm going to read the chat here. This happened to me. I started with a salary. After it, I felt I was doing too many tasks that were not planned at the beginning, and I felt very important in this position. I asked for salary negotiation. So Hadam is sharing about how they asked for a review at a later point, after a few months, when they noticed that the compensation did not feel adequate, did not feel fair related to work responsibilities. Cool. Okay, so we talked about why you should negotiate, and I hope I'm convincing everyone here. Now let's look at how. How do you negotiate? So I have 4 things that I'm going to try to run through with you guys before our time is up. I see that I have so much to say about negotiation that we might not get to our mock negotiation, but we will try. And also I want to set some time aside to handle any questions as well. So how you negotiate, I have 4 things for you to consider. And as I said at the beginning of the class, this is a really big topic. So don't stop here. If you're actually going into a negotiation, you should research, research, research. So you should be going online, you should watch videos, you should do practice sessions, you should do as much as you can so that you're entering your negotiation prepared. So the 4 steps I have are research, 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 set objectives and red lines, initiate the conversation, and seek win-win solutions. All right, let's start with research. So for research, 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 I decided to write 2 bullet points in super simple language because while I could make it sound fancy, you're really doing 2 things when you research. You're figuring out what is fair, meaning in the market, what is the normal amount of pay that someone gets for this? You don't want to be the only fool working that job. Let's say you're doing I don't know, some kind of delivery service, and you accept a certain pay, and then you meet someone working for the same company and has the same job as you and is making 3 times as much. You're going to sit there and say, oh, if only I had known I could ask for more. Do as much as you can to know before you accept the job. That can include finding people on LinkedIn who work at the company, who have the current job, and be very transparent with them. I've been offered a position at your company, and I'm not really sure how much salary I can negotiate. Could you give me a sense if I ask for this? Is this within the realm? This might not be something you're comfortable with, but the only way to figure out if what we're asking for is fair is to learn the salary of the market we work in. So whether that's friends and family, LinkedIn, or research on the internet, these sort of conversations may be necessary for you to figure out what is fair. And the next is figure out how much they can pay. This is also not easy, but essentially trying to determine how much can this company afford. You know, they cannot afford my 100,000 dinar a month salary, so it's not interesting to negotiate for that. Figuring out how much a company can pay is largely guesswork. You're going to have to think about how long has the company been in existence, how many employees do they have, how much have they been hiring. If a company is hiring a lot of people at one time, that means they have resources, they have budget. It's not cheap to hire staff in Algeria because the taxes are really high for the company. So if it's a moment that they're investing in bringing in a new team, you can think, oh, looks like they have a budget. If they have an open position advertised and they're hiring you, it means that they have budget for 2 positions and you're first to arrive. You're the first to get the offer, so negotiate. On the opposite end, if you see that nobody has been hired in a while, if you hear in the interview that the reason they're bringing you on board is because they really need help, things aren't going well, let's say you're coming on for sales and they're telling you sales numbers have been low, so we're looking to hire an associate, that gives you information that maybe they are limited from a budget perspective. So the research phase is really about figuring out as much information as you can with guesswork and with detective work, what is fair and how much they can pay. Next, we have setting objectives and red lines. So you need to know when you go into a negotiation, what is your goal? What do you want? What is your ultimate goal? And also, what are your red lines? Meaning, what do you need or you walk away? So negotiations fundamentally, as we said earlier, they have risk. So if the salary they offer you is adequate, it's adequate. It's not amazing, but it's okay. You would still take the job, even if the negotiation fails. Then you need to communicate that. You need to say to them, listen, thank you for offering this. I feel like this higher salary is more appropriate because I have this experience and I've worked at this company and I've already been in this field. And I'd like to know, this is a really good phrase to say, I'd like to know if there is any flexibility in the salary. So you can negotiate without saying, you know, if you don't change it, I leave, right? The red line is, if you don't change it, I leave. You can say it respectfully, but essentially is, I cannot accept the amount you're giving me. I'm terribly sorry. It's not feasible and it doesn't feel like a fair compensation. If you say that, like you communicate, this is my red line. If I don't reach above, 45,000 dinar, I don't take it. Then the company may say to you, okay, we can't afford you. Thank you for coming in. You cannot go back to them and say, oh, wait. Actually, I do want the job. No, at that point, you have sacrificed. So know your red line. Do not pass your red line because there's no way to come back from that. And the company may not take you. If you say to them, listen, I need remote working privileges or I won't take the job. That's absolutely a red line for me. I don't have a car. The commute is too far. I'm convinced I can do this job remotely. And that for me is my red line. I need remote work. And they'll come back to you and say, we can't accommodate that. Thank you so much. Good luck. Khalas. Conversation over. Point of this slide is to say, don't oversell your negotiation. Don't go in so hard that you end up losing the opportunity. Do not lie about your red line. It does not make a company like you more if you're harsh. There are very respectful and clear ways to communicate about objectives that are not red lines. So like I said earlier, I'm appreciating the offer. I'm excited to work with you. I don't feel the salary is adequate for my skill level. Could we review it? Is there room in the salary? Is there room to explore expanding it? Something like this. Asking, can we look into it, is different than saying, I will leave if it doesn't change. Okay? You can have your own style. You can tell me like, I want to be more or less firm in these conversations. But I think the biggest mistake that new negotiators make is they overemphasize their red line. Because when we get a job offer, we can feel very confident. Oh, they want us. They want me. I'm going to ask for the triple, the double, something really extreme. And then they overplay their hand and they might lose the offer. The next thing that I need you to know when you're doing a negotiation is that the company will not initiate a negotiation for you. You are responsible for telling them that you want to negotiate. All right, here's what I would recommend that you do. So most job offers come via email. Even if someone tells you, maybe they call you on the phone, they let you know in person, it should follow up with something written because a job offer is a contract and it is a legal arrangement between you and the company. So you will have an opportunity when something is coming to you written. At that moment, the first thing that you need to do is thank them. Be appreciative, show gratitude. Thank you so much for the offer. I'm so honored that you want me to join the team. Whatever you need to say, that needs to be the beginning before we launch into a negotiation. Next, alerting them to the fact that you want to talk, that you want to negotiate. And here I'd like you to be specific because it is helpful in a negotiation if the employer knows they're walking into a negotiation. Not simply, hey, can we have a quick call? I think what I recommend you to do is, I'd like to discuss the salary. Do you have time for a call? Let them prepare. It's no use surprising someone to discuss negotiations because they may not know how much they're allowed to offer. But if they see, oh, he wants to talk salary, maybe they'll go to human resources and say, am I allowed to increase? How much can I offer? It's more helpful to have a conversation with someone who's prepared for that conversation. So request a discussion. The discussion can be in person or the discussion can be online in a video call, on a phone call. As a last option, you can also simply write an email, and the email itself can be a negotiation. There's no rule that says negotiations have to happen in a live format. It's definitely the scariest when you're talking to someone in that moment and you're nervous and you don't know how to exactly phrase it. There's nothing wrong with an email negotiation. The statistics that I raised at the beginning include email negotiations. What's important is that they should still present the same points as a spoken negotiation. They should still present why you think you should have a higher salary or greater benefits. What do you bring to the table? What is your value? They should still be polite. They should be long. It should be something substantial. I do not consider an email that says, hey, is there any room to discuss salary as a negotiation? That is the beginning of suggestion to have a discussion. A discussion is truly an outline of your main arguments about why you should be considered. And the last one, and then I'll come back to the chat because I see some questions coming in. The last one is to seek win-win solutions. So when you are coming to a negotiation table with an employer, it's important that you show them that you understand their perspective. Of course, the employer is recruiting you, so they need you. They have a job for you. There is something in their business that is not happening well or is not happening at all. Maybe they have a new project and they can't get it started until you're there. So they want you. At the same time, employers and employees, by definition, have different interests. The business is trying to make money, is trying to save money, to reduce costs. Employees are bringing value, and also there is a cost associated, which is the cost of their salary. So the business and the employer and the employee in a negotiation, they have the potential to be at odds. Like the business can say, the employer can say, you don't understand me. I don't have any room in the budget. There's no way I can add any salary. I can't add benefits. The employee is saying, I have bills to pay too. This is a really big job you're asking. You're asking for tons of time, tons of hours, tons of dedication. So we don't want the negotiation to resemble a clash. It does not have to. And the person who can help dictate that is you. It's not just the job of the employer to be professional. It is also the job of the person seeking negotiations. The best thing you can do to help create a win-win solution is to focus on your own attributes and what you bring to the position, much more than criticizing. I've heard a lot of people go into negotiations saying, the salary you offered me is really, really low. The employer will feel defensive. They reviewed and approved that salary. So by criticizing the salary, you're also criticizing their judgment, right? That's starting you off on something negative. Make the discussion about you. I have these skills. I have this experience. I have this degree. And these should merit higher salary. And with a higher salary, I'll be more motivated. I'll feel more connected. I'll feel more engaged, implicated in the mission. And then the win-win part comes in when you can show that you care about the company, that you understand their perspective. You can say something like, I know that, the tax burden for employees is high. I appreciate that the budget is tight. I understand that you have a lot of factors and it's very hard to consider, adding a new member to the team. Just even saying these kinds of sentences, it demonstrates empathy with the employer. The other thing that you can do after demonstrating that you are considering them, you're considering their perspective, is to actually propose ideas that show that you're factoring them in. So, for example, the remote work, you can say, I really want to remote work. I understand that that's not normal here. From what I see, nobody is remote working. It's very unusual. Here's why I think I could make it work for you. I would call on the phone at the same time every day for a check-in. I'll be very consistent. I will make sure to visit for an in-person week once a month. So you're essentially connecting what you want with their perspective. I'm factoring in what I noticed. I noticed that this isn't a common request. I'm factoring that in. I'm considering that in what I say next. This will go really far in creating a positive dynamic between you and your future employer during the negotiation, and it could make the difference between a yes or a no to your requests. Khaled says, what's remove work? Okay, well, this could be my cold and my ears, my popped ears and my nasal voice, but I'm saying remote work. I don't know. I can hear myself sounding very, very nasally. I'm speaking with my nose because I still have my sinuses clogged. So thanks for you guys for putting up with it. The last thing I have for win-win solutions is that you need to empathize, but simultaneously stay firm. Firm to your red line. So if you can't work for a certain pay, You can empathize all day with the company and it's still going to be a no for you. So you can honor your own red lines while behaving in a way that shows empathy for the company. I know I'm repeating myself, but I just want to say again, there is no reason why a negotiation has to end up like a clash. Everyone can approach it respectfully, with empathy and with a positive mindset. All right. So unfortunately, I have talked so long, and you guys have had such interesting questions. We didn't get to this negotiation, but I had an idea, and maybe we can try it in our next master class where I wanted you to come on audio and try to negotiate with me. So the situation was someone who was offered 60,000 dinar a month to be a marketing director. And this person wants 75,000 dinar a month, and they had 4 years experience. And I was going to hear what you guys had to say, but we've only got 4 minutes left, so we're not going to be able to spend it on this. But I thought I'd show you the slide anyways and show you the type of scenario you can use to challenge yourself to do some practice negotiations. Why not practice in the mirror? You can be a good first audience. So with these remaining 4 minutes, let me get to your questions. Okay. Abdullah says, how do you handle situations where there is resistance or disagreements during negotiations? So Abdullah, I hope the most recent slide I got to answers that question for you. Number one, let us expect disagreement. We have parties that have opposite interests. The more salary an employee gets, the less money for the company in the immediate term, the short term, not necessarily in the long term if the employee brings a lot of business. So I would recommend that you expect disagreement. And the fact that you're expecting it hopefully means you're prepared to handle it calmly. As long as disagreement doesn't raise into conflict or discomfort, it's okay to disagree with the employer. They can say to you, I think what we're offering is fair compensation in the market. And you can say, okay, for me, my research, what I know about the market, this doesn't feel fair. So if there's no wiggle room, if there's no opportunity to change it, okay, I will consider it. And the discussion ends there. No one is trying to persuade the other of the market conditions, right? Some of this information is opinion-based. Sometimes the employer will be stuck in the last century. They will have a really different idea of how much you're worth. If you can't come to an agreement with them, then it's a good sign that it's not the workplace for you. Salim, what do I do to give a salary expectation? I Google it. Yeah, Salim, I want you to watch. I don't know if we talked about it this time, but it will be the master class on interviews to answer that question. But essentially, everything you're saying is right. Research, research, research. Check out a website called Glassdoor to see if you can find what people, I'll put it in the chat, are regularly charging for that role. Okay, let's see what else. Oh, you guys are writing a lot in the chat. Nice to see. Hadil, interviewers understand your negotiation and don't judge you for that, especially if you're a fresh graduate. I don't guarantee that interviewers will understand your negotiation. People react differently, but what I can guarantee based on these statistics is negotiations often work. So do your best, remain respectful. Try to hit that perfect medium where you're not too forceful and too strong, but you're also not too timid. Clear communication, show that you can handle it with maturity, and you'll be surprised. Even if they're uncomfortable, they may end up becoming more comfortable and respecting you for it. What about them saying they're going to give you the half for a trial because you do not have experience? Wissam, you can negotiate on everything. So they're saying we'll give you 50% salary during the trial period because you don't have negotiation. Only you can decide if this is acceptable for you. You look at the expenses you have. You look at the market. You consider, in your opinion, is this fair? If you feel it is not fair, you find the reasons, you bring them, and you advocate for yourself. There's no sort of objective fair or not fair treatment. If you feel it is fair, then you accept it. If you feel it is not fair, then you negotiate. But as we know, if you negotiate, you are likely to get better conditions. Awesome. Khalid wants to know the keywords on an English job interview. Khalid and Salim, you guys got to watch the recording on the interview class. We are post-interview right now. Negotiations is a post-interview world. All right. Hanan, why is there a difference between all company about percent for CV? Hanan, I don't understand the question. Why is there a difference between all company about percent for the CV? If anyone can help translate this for me in the chat, I don't get the question. How to negotiate in the salary if the job demands more responsibilities? Yeah, so I mean, Muhammad Amin is right. Sometimes the job you accept is not the job you have. So you negotiate at the beginning, but you can negotiate at any time. Do not hesitate to go to your manager and say, I would like to negotiate my salary because the job I accepted is not the job I'm performing. Negotiations are not limited to one time. I mean, you cannot do them until you have the offer. But once you have the offer and once you have the job, you can negotiate whenever it feels appropriate to you. All right, you guys, that is my time. We are at 8:30. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope it was interesting for you. For those of you who've been joining me every week, it's been really a pleasure to get to know you on the chat, to hear your questions. I hope that what I've been showing you has been useful. Wait a second. How do I get this to show you my final slide? Well, I wanted to show the final slide because it has contact information for us at the school, but Canva doesn't want to let me show it. So I guess we're just going to end on this one. Thank you, guys. I hope you know that this is the first of a series of free master classes. The next one is actually going to be during Ramadan, and it will be focused on the TEFL, which is an English language certification test, a super different topic from this one. Follow us on Instagram. Everything will be announced ahead of time. The classes will remain free, online, and available to everyone. And I really can't wait to see you back there. So I hope you have a wonderful few weeks or month or so until we get the next course running. And stay in touch. Come and visit us. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.